Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Our guest today is Professor John Garver of Sam Nunn School of International Affairs at Georgia Institute of Technology. Professor Garver, we've been talking about U.S.-China relations, but apparently there are always ups and downs. But in general, it's on the rise. But it's election year in the U.S., and as you can see that China became an election issue in the previous elections. How about this year?
My hunch is that China will not be an issue unless there's some dramatic event in China associated with the Olympics and so forth. It could be, but I don't think so. I mean, we have enough pressing foreign policy issues on the agenda now. The Middle East, Iraq, Israel, Iran. And Obama's, I think, now that he's won the primary, will tack towards the center. And he will have to prove that he's tough enough and, and competent enough to handle these difficult issues. And, of course, McCain's going to push him a lot on that. So I doubt in that context that there will be much light between the two on China.
But China may not become an issue of the election. But apparently these two candidates seem to have a little bit different policy position vis-a-vis China. Do you see any big differences, or they are the same, China policy?
Well, I would say that the difference is that Obama has, and Clinton before him, Hillary Clinton before him, staked out a substantially more economic protectionist position, critical of WTO and of NAFTA and of supposedly asymmetrical trade agreements and so forth, which have led to the loss, supposedly the loss of American jobs. I mean, this was a significant theme during the primary, whereas McCain is more of a traditional Republican, believes that trade is good for the United States and that it can compete. And that could become so if China enters the campaign, I think it would probably come in with this economic trajectory.
But as you can see, that there's increasing trade imbalance between these two economic giants. Do you think that kind of concern, especially job security for the people in the United States, will become a very important issue during the campaign?
I think it will be an important issue. This is a very important issue in Congress among the electorate, and I think it will be an issue.
But apparently it's an action-reaction process. Do you think that China so far has been responsive enough to the domestic concerns of the American presidential candidates or president?
Well, I know from doing the budget for my program in China coming up that the renminbi is in fact appreciating the U.S. dollars. So I think that there is a response to to American pressure, to international pressure, but not as much and as quickly as Washington would like.
But whoever becomes the next U.S. president, I think people argue that there are always continuities as well as changes when you have new leadership, when you have new policies and so on. What would be the continuities in the U.S.-China policy?
I think the quest for partnership with China on particular issues, the Korean issue, again, Afghanistan, the desire for partnership with China on these issues. I think that will be the continuity.
How about possible changes? If for instance, the Democrat win the presidential election.
I guess I'd have to say, again, economic protectionism, relatively. I mean, we're not talking about U.S. withdrawal from WTO or anything like that, but a greater pressure on Beijing to open markets, to appreciate the renminbi and so forth.
How about security policies? Do you think there were big shifts or modifications?
Well, some people argue that there's a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans on this. John McCain argues that Japan is the foundation of U.S. policy, and not to be muddle-headed about that, and imagine that China is the partner. But as my earlier comments said, I agree with that. But I think that to some extent that's really an election foil. I mean, they're just finding something to beat Obama over the head with.
But if we can learn anything from the history, as you can see that in the 1990s, especially at the beginning of the 1990s, there seems to be some difficulties in the Japan-U.S. relationship. So you have the so-called alliance drifting. And some people criticize the Clinton administration for putting too much emphasis on Sino-U.S. relations and so on. Do you think that will happen again?
I don't think so. There's been a remarkable development in the Japan-U.S. alliance. I mean, you have Japanese troops serving in Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, granted they're guarded by the Dutch and I forget who else, but they, you know, they're not in a combat situation. But still, you have Japanese troops in Iraq. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force has deployed ships to the Indian Ocean in support of, you know, coalition combat activities in Afghanistan. The Japanese Navy in the Indian Ocean in partnership with the United States. These are 5, 6, 10 years ago would have been inconceivable. So I think that that there's real momentum in the Japanese-U.S. global partnership, and I don't think that'll change with regardless of who's in the White House.
But the current Bush administration has taken the so-called hedging strategy in the face of the rise of China.
And I think anybody in the White House will do that. I don't think that Obama would abandon that. I mean,
in terms of substance of the content of the strategy, will there be any difference?
You know, I don't think so. You know, Clinton, in terms of the relationship with India, Clinton forged the new relationship with India in the talks between Jaswant Singh and Strobe Talbot in the second half of '98, and then the real breakthrough came in '99 and 2000. But Clinton was unwilling to move forward with the military relationship, in part because of the effects it was thought would have on China. And Bush came in, and the Indian-U.S. military relationship has just exploded. So it's possible that again an Obama administration could pull back to some degree from the Indian relationship, the relation with India. But I don't think it'd go very far.
And how about U.S. Taiwan policy or Taiwan Strait policy? As you know, that the Mao administration was just sworn in May, and which will introduce new policies towards China. How does the U.S. see the new policy orientation on the part of Taiwan?
Well, I think that the State Department is very happy. You know,
feel relieved.
The understanding that the United States and China have going back to July '71 and February '72 was that the United States acknowledges and does not challenge the Chinese position that Taiwan is a part of China. Now, you understand the subtext of that. But what that means is the United States can't support Taiwan independence. So if you have moves like changing the name of the country, which if you change the name of a postage stamp, you know, or you have referendums on your on the presidential ballot about what name you're going to use to apply for UN membership. Well, that's really pretty close to coming very close to changing the name of the country. So I mean, the United States was unhappy with this because it saw leading to real problems in the U.S. and the U.S. PRC relation. So I think Washington is very happy to see a more a group of people in power in Taipei that are less interested in pushing the envelope and less less interested in pushing the envelope. But as we
know that the current government of Taiwan is trying to reach some sort of peace agreement with the other side of Taiwan Strait, and some people are very concerned about the possible implication of that kind of peace agreement, which means that will that affect traditional military alliance between Taiwan and the U.S. What's your view on that?
Well, yeah, I think that we're the people of Taiwan, through a consultative and democratic process, want to reach some type of agreement with the mainland. I don't think the United States would object to that, pretty much regardless of what that was. I mean, if Taiwan decided next week to unify with the PRC, to become a special autonomous region of the PRC, if this happened through a consultative and democratic process, I don't think the United States would object to that. But on the other hand, there's the sober reality is that that's not very likely.
That's right.
And that any agreement that Taiwan is likely to reach with the mainland will still leave the people of Taiwan as with de facto sovereignty over this island. And as long as the people of Taiwan have de facto sovereignty over this island, well, that accords a certain American interest.
Mm-hmm. And the key concept to the U.S., especially Bush administration's China policy or Taiwan policy, is the so-called status quo. But as we know that in this situation, it's very dynamic in the region, and things are changing every day. So when we come back, we'll talk about what would be the best strategy to maintain the so-called status quo.
Very good.
So don't go away. We'll be back after this message.